Hey, it's me, Shane Drake. I'm back again, and we want to continue off where I left in my other video, talking about finding some sort of cure or frequency for the biosensors or nanotech that's been implemented in those who have either taken RNA injections or been subjected to some sort of nano particulate exposure, etc. So, if you haven't watched my other video, you've got to watch it. It explains the nanotechnology, how it's implemented, how it works. This isn't going to make a lot of sense if you haven't watched that video. So what I want to kind of jump to is what kind of conversations I've been getting and people who've been coming to me now that that last video has gained a little traction. I am very weary and cautious about the information that people are providing to me, because a lot of these accounts don't seem real to me. It seems like some sort of psychological operation. I hate to put it like that, but a lot of these people seem to be more about wasting your time and spinning your wheels than actually getting to the bottom of what we're talking about here. And so let's get to the bottom of it. People have been giving me so many different directions to go with a cure, but I'm gonna just say this right out the bat. None of these people have given me a science-backed answer. Something with real research, real results, real electron microscopy, where we're seeing in real time either the spike proteins or the biosensors dissolve, or someone connected to this technology giving out these answers or clues to how to dissolve it or get rid of it or turn off the biosensors. Because ultimately, that's what we need. We don't need all of these other remedies, right? Most of the suggestions I'm getting about like home remedies, half of them I would say include taking some sort of supplement or some sort of powder or stuff I wouldn't trust, right? A new company offering you a solution to detox. I do not trust these companies. You don't know what you're getting in that container. Just like I said, the FDA doesn't regulate the amount of particulate that is in these products. You don't know what you're getting. You got to be really weary about what you consume now. Just thinking about how this tech has been secretly implemented. Okay, so I'm getting things like cilantro, garlic, ginkgo biloba, vitamin C, all sorts of B3 niacin, B1 thiamine. And a lot of this natural remedies are based around oxygenation, blood circulation, rejuvenating your cells, and basically like kind of promoting natural detox. And also some of these are like I've heard like lithium, but then how do you take it? How do you get it? But like lithium will deter the spike proteins from their normal function. I've heard a lot of different things. The next one that I would say that wasn't, and I'm not trying to discredit these might help you, but at the end of the day, we don't need to worry about, I think, obviously we want to get the spike proteins out of us, or if they're in you, you want to get them out of you or out of people. But if you're somebody who's developing cancer and it's from this biosensor, say this is in the future, say we don't get to this in time or whatever, that you still need the spike protein nanowire antennas to communicate. It's a body, it's a network, right? So it needs those antennas to communicate, to turn off the signal. So we need to turn off the sensor, we need the signal, we need the frequency. So there's still these answers that we'll need. even if there is natural remedies. Because I believe purely, honestly, in fasting. I think fasting is the number one answer. If, your body is starving, it's not going to prioritize building tumors and doing all of these other functions. It's going to detox naturally. It's going to say, all right, time to get rid of the garbage. We're running on empty. Time to get into crunch mode, crunch time. And that's what the body naturally does. It's a process called abiogenesis. So then I went down a rabbit hole looking at abiogenesis, and there's all this research about how abiogenesis stops cancer and tumor growth, right? So if you go into starvation, if you go into fasting or natural fasting, your body will naturally resist building tumors and a lot of other things. But what I also found, and this is the level of evil or whatever we're up against, is that part of this RNA concoction, they say it requires something called SCG2. SCG2. So they say, okay, well, in order for us to give you an RNA injection to tell your cells to produce these spike proteins using our RNA, we also need to give you something developed called secretoganin 2. And what this does is it releases this SCG2, which puts your cells into a M2 state. Now, I know this sounds all mumbo jumbo, but imagine your cells have multiple states. And one of those states, when you go into fasting, is called the M1 state, where they will regenerate themselves, where they kind of go into the take out the trash mode. Okay? Now imagine what I'm telling you is, in order for them to give you the RNA that creates the spike protein, they also included in those injections something that prevents you from being able to fast and detox, right? So that's what I'm telling you. So that's what we're up against here. So if you have these RNA injections, it's like you've got to find the answer, and the answer isn't going to be something simple. It's going to be a little bit more science involved. So we need to get more science involved people. Another thing I heard was this guy said, this one guy suggested a 3 kilohertz signal. I'm sorry, I'm misquoting this. A 3 gigahertz signal. Now, please take this with a grain of salt, because I don't remember this precisely, because there was nothing to back it up. 3 pulses, 3 seconds of a certain signal. Now, that kind of took me down a rabbit hole looking at some patents that Jay Wilson had posted, where essentially they were manipulating mice to not become diabetic by using biosensors to create, to have the mouse produce glucose or whatever. Okay? So that's what they were doing in the signal. But what I took away from that was the signal they were using was a 1 kilohertz signal, right? To manipulate the biosensor. And that took me down another rabbit hole where I looked at the Purcell effect on these nanowire antennas. And one of the things that they were having trouble with was, how do we communicate with such a small device, right, without so accurately? There's basically, because the antenna is so small, but there's also various sizes of these nano antennas. What signal is the right type of signal, right power level? Because there's way more to a signal than just power level. There's amplitude, there's frequency, there's modulation, there's sideband, all sorts of different things that can be included in just one signal. But more importantly, they're trying to figure out exactly what kind of power level gets them the right result with these biosensors. And they were experiencing something called the Purcell effect, which basically means that the antenna was getting overloaded. And when the antenna gets overloaded and it's connected to an emitter, the emitter will overload. So basically the antenna and the emitter and everything in the signal all have to be tuned to each other. And they were figuring out that 18 kilohertz produced what's called spurious emissions, which just means a bunch of signals that you don't want. Signals that could be the wrong signal. So that tells me that you have to be careful with this. You can't just be blasting frequencies at these things, trying to dissolve them or whatever. because we don't know what signal does what. And that's why we need to fucking find these people who develop the technology so we can get them to tell us exactly what signals do what, right? So we know that we're not fucking somebody up with the wrong signal, with spurious emissions. And beyond all that, just the whole amount of people that, this whole thing's just super frustrating. There is everyone who thinks that they know better doesn't have time to talk about how much they know better or to refute what's being said here. And then everybody else is basically the people who don't feel like they're going to be affected by this, right? Because they didn't take the RNA injection. So they're thinking to themselves, well, whatever, right? I'm not going to be affected by this. But you are going to be affected by this. The whole world is going to be affected by what's happening, right? And we can't just stand by and let this happen to people. And, it's not their fault that they were raised in a world where one deception leads to another deception to another deception. People are not prepared for these type of challenges. Some of us are built different and see things differently. We need to come together and figure out how to get rid of this technology. I've seen some people say the fibrous clots, right, which are the nanowire antennas, they're just in your blood. And then they filter them out, right? So if you trust those people, watch what they're doing, right? Because they're also finding them post-mortem, obviously. They're like saying that they're plastic and all this other stuff. Now, I believe it's just mineralization and white blood cells from, being the electroplation process. That's what I think that is. But, don't quote me on that. But there's got to be an answer. A lot of people obviously understand and see the perplexity of what's in front of us. And they understand that they wouldn't have created this technology without a way to remove it for themselves. And what to do. What you can do now is you can just prepare for basically what's to come. Everything if you want to tell the future, if you want to know how to tell the future, just read what they want to implement. The World Economic Forum, the UN, and all these other people who they tell you what they're going to do or what they want to do. And then just look for how they could possibly implement it with this set of events or that set of events. And very quickly, the puzzle pieces will start to fall in place, and you'll see how the next thing is going to lead to this implementation of that. And it's pretty obvious where we're heading with all this. So unless we come up with a solution in the next 4 months, I'm going to say 4 to 6 months is what we've got here. Pretty soon, this is going to be illegal, talking about this. I'm pretty sure. Don't worry about me. The whole thing is like, I'm aware of like what's going on. So if I'm aware of what's going on, then, they'd have to find a lie in what I'm saying. I haven't lied about anything. So until they get a lie on me, then there's really nothing that they can do because I'm just playing their game back at them. Do you understand how that works? This is all to filter people through a system, and your job is to be the 1% of the people that doesn't fit into the filter, right? Their plan is to not, right? A lot of people don't understand the whole pole flip thing here and why would they kill everybody before the pole flip? Wouldn't the pole flip just kill everybody? No. I mean, if you understand what I was talking about with the pole flip and how it cycles and it's back one way and back the other way, that means that you understand that there's certain portions of certain continents that have like mountain ranges and stuff like that, which will basically protect a huge portion of those land masses. So in the US, there's like this central valley that may not get much impact. I mean, they're probably still going to get flooded out, but at certain elevations, there's going to be probably tens of thousands of people who are going to be perfectly fine and not affected at all, depending. There's a lot of factors at play here. Right? So what's easier? putting the control networks in now and taking out 99% of the people through these control networks, and then right, so then there's 1% of people left. How many of those people are going to, right? So then 1% of, so then if 99% of the people left are affected by the flood, there's only 1% of the people left, right? As opposed to trying to establish all these networks of control with basically 1 million people scattered all over the world instead of a few thousand, right? Do you understand how that works? Anyways, yeah, this is a long video. I didn't mean for it to be so long, but where you at, people? Where you at?